Star Wars keeps making its biggest Mandalorian plot hole even worse. Star Wars has accomplished plenty with The Mandalorian, both in universe and in real life, but there's one plot hole from the TV show that just keeps getting worse. The Mandalorian Season 1 begins 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, which has allowed it to become a bridge between the original and sequel Star Wars trilogies, and the process of laying the foundation for the sequel Star Wars trilogy, most pointedly the pivotal Project Necromancer that would eventually bring Palpatine back from the dead. The Mandalorian has struggled with one key thing: its timeline. This is especially true of the most crucial event at the core of its entire story. First introduced by Paz Vizsla in The Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 3, Chapter 3, The Sin, the Great Purge of Mandalore saw the Empire pillaging and destroying the entire surface of Mandalore, rendering nearly all Mandalorians extinct. As a result, Mandalorians like Din Djarin were forced into hiding, hence why his covert lives underground on Navarro. This event has been somewhat expanded on in both the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian Season 3, but never once is its actual place in the timeline ever revealed. Initially, it was thought to have happened before the events of A New Hope, as creator Jon Favreau intended on using the Purge as an explanation for where the Mandalorians were during the original trilogy. Then, in the Ahsoka Season 1 finale, the droid Huyang informs Ezra Bridger that Mandalore was destroyed at the end of the war, which seems to make the Purge of Mandalore a part of the Empire's operation. Cinder, which was mentioned in The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 7, Chapter 15, The Believer. Just under a year later, however, the video game Star Wars Outlaws seemed to retcon the Purge's timeline once again, with background stormtrooper chatter discussing the Purge before Return of the Jedi takes place. All the while, we have yet to receive an official date for when the Purge of Mandalore actually takes place. It's true that Star Wars has a very complex timeline that's undoubtedly difficult to keep up with, especially with nearly 50 years' worth of supplemental material to account for. But the Purge of Mandalore is too essential to The Mandalorian and the overall Star Wars narrative to not have a specific place on the timeline. The Mandalorian is currently at the center of Star Wars' biggest storytelling initiative, especially with The Mandalorian and Grogu movie set to release in May 2026. With the Purge of Mandalore playing such a crucial role in that story, especially in Season 3, it's almost ridiculous that we don't yet know for certain when this tragedy takes place. It's a springboard for so much of what happens in The Mandalorian, and as its story continues to web off into others that will eventually culminate in Dave Filoni's untitled Star Wars movie, there needs to be some long-awaited clarity surrounding the Purge. Otherwise, the stories of characters like Din Djarin and Bo-Katan Kryze will inevitably falter. Unfortunately, we have already seen some evidence of this. The Mandalorian Season 3, for many viewers, was overall a miss compared to Seasons 1 and 2, mostly because it didn't feel nearly as grounded nor as fleshed out. Perhaps if the Purge had an actual place in the timeline and more definitive lore attached, this could have been prevented. Nearly 6 years after it was first introduced in The Mandalorian, Star Wars needs to simply choose when the Purge of Mandalore takes place, and it needs to stick to that placement. At present, its murky timeline is hindering the story of The Mandalorian rather than helping it, and even that of the original trilogy as well. If the Purge truly does take place after the war, then Star Wars still has to find a way to explain why the Mandalorians aren't around during the Galactic Civil War. It stands to reason that the greatest warriors in the galaxy would fight against an unjust empire, or at least be more present around the fight in general. If it takes place during or after the war, as indicated by Star Wars Outlaws and Ahsoka respectively, then there will need to be some small workarounds for what those two projects are actually referring to in relation to the Purge's timeline. Either way, clarity is absolutely necessary here. The Great Purge of Mandalore is a turning point in Star Wars history, specifically for the Mandalorians, and with a character who is directly affected by it now leading the current era of Star Wars storytelling, this event truly needs to be more grounded. The future of The Mandalorian and its related properties depends on it.